Oh, we should.
Untitled broadcast. That's the best. So far, so good, though. It's...
Looking good. I'm gonna go to.
Sounds like we're really quiet.
It does sound like we're really quiet.
Why is that?
Oh. That looked like it was. Yeah. How'd you do that?
What do you mean?
It's coming through. It looks, at least on here, it looks like it's coming through. Oh, you're just changing. That looked like it was. Yeah.
There we go.
How'd you do that? It's coming through. It looks, at least on here, it looks like it's coming through.
And it's not picking up the speakers either.
Yeah. Weird.
Because it's only coming out of this thing, and those ones are facing the other way. Nice. Ow. Boink.
Oh, now it's picking up the speakers.
Ow. Boink. Welcome
to
Sectional Intercourse!
the show that we do.
Alright. Are we gonna call... I guess we should change the name on these streams.
Yeah, I was gonna say, also, if we can... Oh, wait, no, you won't be logged into the Twitch here. I will bring it up on my phone.
Oh, it's not logged in.
It's not?
Oh, maybe it is. There we go.
There we go.
This is EP1, by the way, apparently. Well, because we have a logo now, so...
Oh,
we
nice.
might as well call it EP1.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to share it on my
Change.
Facebook, so people can see who
How do I
won.
log out on here? This is
Just
ridiculous.
click log out, and then...
There it is. It's buried under 3 different menus, but... Log in as Sectional Intercourse. It's not our passport.
Alright, so, now that you've watched us share this on social media so that we can hopefully get a viewer...
Let's start the show.
We did start the show. The show has been started. It's
Yeah,
done
but
started.
let's extra start. Welcome to the show.
We're on a couch.
That's the name of the show, kind of. So, anyways, we got a couple things to talk about this week. One of the things that I have going on right now that I thought was interesting, something I've heard of it before. NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, is
You're
November.
telling me about that, yeah.
And so this is my first year doing that, so I've been doing a lot of prep for that. But it got me thinking. We kind of talked about doing this for last week's show, I think. We're talking about meeting deadlines.
Oh, yeah.
And so with this coming up, my deadline, like every day, because the goal is to reach 50,000 words by the end of the month.
Okay.
So it's like something to the order of 1,600 words a day, which is like
That's decent.
some pages.
Yeah, I mean, but still, like, that's not unattainable.
It's not unattainable. And that's sort of the idea of the whole thing, is that by the end of it, you'll have a first draft that's about, like, wouldn't be an exceptionally long novel, but you have a first draft of what could be a novel by the end of the month.
Cool. What are you going to write your novel about? Me?
So it's going to be a science fiction, but sort of a science fantasy more than anything. Like, more than, like, not with, like, fantasy elements like magic, but, like, more, like, the structure of, like, a fantasy sort of story, more adventure. It's not so much focused on the science fiction, like what you think of when you think of science fiction, like the sort of like futurist questions about what the future holds. It's more like there's elements of that to what I want to write, but I mostly just want to write a really cool adventure story about. It's an idea I had for a long time, and I kind of shelved because I found a book that, because I had this idea to write this story about this, this like far-flung future where there's this solar system where, like people have settled, but like settling there wasn't easy. So it's sort of like it's not like you can just hop between planets like you can in like a Star Wars. It's more like it's effort to get between planets, and people sort of have to be like pioneers. They have to actually settle on the planets. But then each ship that was sent there took a long time to get there. It's more like a generation ship than like a light speed travel. So they're kind of stuck.
So when they get there, they're blue people?
So by the time they get there, they're avatars. So what I'm saying is I'm writing an Avatar fan fiction. Well, the idea is essentially that there's these the captains of the ships have sort of become the de facto ruling class.
Oh, okay.
And that the story begins with their children have been sent out into to sort of they've each taken they've each had a child and sent them out into the world sort of and left them with sort of in a working class or somewhere where they can't be found just in case something should happen to them because it's a volatile political climate, and then they're assassinated, and then it's sort of the story of these kids that are sort of suddenly told that they have that they sort of have this the weight of the world on their shoulders, and then being brought and having to deal with the fact that maybe they don't want to be involved in this at all, especially since they're all from sort of different backgrounds. Cool. So that's the idea behind it. Let's see, it could completely change by the time I actually get to writing it.
Yeah.
Or by the time I'm done writing the first draft, I might be like, I hate this idea.
Yeah.
And it might be a completely different story. But that's sort of the goal right now, is to finally take the story that I ended up not writing because I found a book called The Emperor's Blades.
Okay.
A week after I had this idea the first time, I was like, oh, that's a cool idea. I saw online on this, I think it was on IO9, they had a list of best fantasy novels of the year. And one of them was this book called The Emperor's Blades about an emperor has been killed and his children he sent off to these different places, and they were raised in these three, one of them's a warrior, his daughter stayed in the capital with him, and his other son's a monk. Cool. So it's them dealing with them, it's so similar. Yeah. I don't want to try and write this.
That's
well, also the book's not that good. So. I don't know, I wish for that the author's almost certainly not watching this podcast. But
what do you mean? We'll tag him.
Yeah, what's his name? Brian something or other.
Dave
Stavely or Stats. I can't remember. That might be just a complete guess.
Yeah.
Completely wrong. But yeah, so that's what's going on.
Sorry, Brian.
No, sorry, potentially Brian. There's a new character for the people we talk to on the show. We always make apologies to potentially Brian.
Yeah, friggin' Brian.
Could be Brian. We don't know.
It wasn't Brian this week. It was Eric last week.
It was Eric last week. We'll just come up with a new person to berate every week. So yeah, and with that coming up, I've been thinking a lot about reaching deadlines and how and that's something you deal with.
That's the only way that I get anything done.
Deadlines. Yeah, I used to need other people to impose deadlines. I've become better at imposing them on myself.
That's
when I was younger though, I couldn't do it unless I had immediate supervision telling me I had to do something. Yeah. At work, I'm a fantastic employee when I'm working. Even when I was working in the worst jobs, someone tells me to do something, I do it.
Yeah.
But if it was hard for me to employ that personally, I'm getting a lot better at it now. Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be doing any of this. But
yeah, for sure.
It's sort of looming on the horizon.
See, my thing is, it's not that I don't get shit done. It's the fact that I'm at a point where I just if I know there's something, if I know there's a chance I'm not gonna do it, I just don't take it on. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a mature way of approaching it. I'm just starting to get to that now. Where if I don't, I'm the worst at just saying yes to everything. I do it so often, and then I am exhausted and worn down, and I'm doing so much, and I'm the laziest person in the world. We talked about this earlier. I may be... People always say to me, you're so busy, you're always doing so much. I'm like, yeah, but you have no idea how much that kills me. Yeah. Because I am the at heart, I am just a lazy. I want to sit at home. I want to read. I want to play video games. I want to watch a good movie. I want to sit around and think about shit.
Yeah.
that's when I'm happiest, is when I'm not. I'm a homebody at heart. So
yeah,
like,
100%. Me too.
like when people are like, "Oh, you got this. You're doing this, and you're doing that," and this isn't technically official yet, so I don't know if I should say this yet. But I got asked to do a role at the theater this summer. Did I tell you about that? So I've got a part in a play this summer. I actually get paid to do some acting.
Sweet.
Which will be nice. So that's but yeah, like all of these things, they pile up, and you're just like, how am I ever gonna get this done? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
How am I ever gonna get through anything?
Yeah, that's it. And like that's the way that I'm starting to look at it, is I want to put more effort into the things that I believe are going to help me build, my future.
And Neil Gaiman's got a great quote about that. I absolutely love. There's a commencement speech that if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. But he says in it, he's like jobs that I would have taken at the beginning of my career, I eventually started to turn down because I wasn't getting closer to the mountain. Like I pictured my dream career as that top of that mountain. And as you start getting further and further along in your career, jobs you would have been like, I can't wait to do this. Mm-hmm. As you move forward, you're like, well, that's a step back.
Yeah.
Like a job doing the thing you've always wanted to do might not be the perfect job for you if you're like, oh, wait, no, I think I can leapfrog this and get to that next step. I'm already kind of circumventing that part of this journey. I can kind of skip working for low pay, or I can make my own work until I can work for someone for pay, or sometimes you just skip working for people. Yeah. That's sort of where I'm focusing on now. I'm like, if I can get to the point where I only work for people if I'm doing a job kind of on contract, then I'm happy. Like, because everybody works for someone.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's got to serve somebody.
I think we've had this conversation kind of before, where I personally I like working for other people because I find it to be like.
Well, it's very gratifying to
taking
deliver
on
a product
any challenge. It's not so much the product. It's the fact that if you don't discriminate with the projects you take on, you also don't have a choice over the problems that you have to solve. Yeah. So you start solving problems that you never thought you'd have to solve.
Well, and that's what I like. I've always loved the idea of writing, and I've enjoyed writing comedy and stuff. But that's sort of my approach to writing, is that I look at the audience as diverse and complex, and how do I solve I would have never, if I sat down and just wrote for me, I would write a story about a dude who
sits on a couch and talks about
I wouldn't
sitting on a couch.
But if you start thinking about oh well, what about I want to write this and I want a character like this, but wait, what if there's a character? What if someone's reading this and I want to do my due diligence and fulfill that person's expectation who knows a bit about that. So now I've got to go do a little bit of research. Because there's nothing worse than thinking I write this story where one of the kids in the story is a street kid. And then some guy who grew up on the streets reads it and goes, this kid seems awfully happy.
Yeah.
So it's
for sure.
I think of my and same with acting. I think of my audience as what if I act this way? Is that going to seem disingenuous to people who've actually experienced this?
Yeah.
Cause,
that makes sense. And that, to transfer it over into what I do, I, instead of putting myself into the boots of my customer, I'm actually trying to put myself in their customer's shoes. And I'm saying, if I was coming to this website looking for this specific service that you have, what do I need to know? Anything else is superfluous.
That's cool about what you do, is that you provide a service to service providers. No one's trying to get a website who doesn't then use it as a front-facing part of them serving their customer base. For sure. So it's really interesting. You're providing a service to their customers, really. Yeah. And it is not a lot of people do that. For sure. If you think. Everyone could think of who are you affecting by providing the service. Even just thinking, as a writer or as an actor, the way I portray things, am I sending a message that people are going to walk out going, now I'm going to incorporate that message into my life, and I want to, and then it impacts the people they meet that day. Everyone could think past that first level of abstraction of, it doesn't just affect one person when you provide a product. We should all just be better at doing things.
Yeah, well, it's just, and it's funny how the people that are actually running the business are so preoccupied with running the business that they forget that that's actually a thing. They're so in their own head about, I need people to come and do this. I need people to come and do this. I need people to come and do this. But really, it's like, what do those people want? Because if you're not giving them what they want, you can only force so much down somebody's throat. You know, you can only buy so many ads.
Well, and when people are like, I want my audience to want this. Well, to a certain extent, you can choose your audience.
Yeah, like there's sales, there's things like that, but there's a diminishing point of return of when you're trying to make things your way too much.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like it's sort of what we do with our other shows is we cater ourselves to our audience, and like. And you kind of have to do that to a certain extent. We don't do that with this show. That's the whole point of doing the show is that we talk about what we like to talk about, and then we'll find ways to deliver that to the right audience. This is more about finding the audience for this show as opposed to making a show for a specific audience.
Yeah, this is our passion show. This is the show that me and Dylan have been talking about since before I joined Cahoots.
This has been my dream for years. Like this is, and I've been pretty frank about that. Like since the beginning with the guys, like if they asked me like early on, we were just getting started. If they asked me like, "What are you passionate about?" I'm like, "Guys, like honestly, I'm doing this to do the podcast." Yeah. That podcast that we were doing at the beginning, which is more my vision of what I'd like to be doing as a media company, is sort of delivering what I best deliver. Yeah. Catering myself to other people is great, and like you were saying, it teaches you to solve problems you wouldn't solve otherwise, and it lets you grow as an individual. But then you need that
to
outlet.
Allow you to do this stuff
Exactly, and those 100%. Give you if we didn't do that, we wouldn't have an outlet to do this. So it's
for sure.
Well, we could, but it wouldn't be nearly as structured. You need structure to.
And it wouldn't feel as rewarding.
No, exactly. This wouldn't be fun if we didn't have other stuff on the go to talk about.
Yeah.
So yeah, the big question, we've kind of done one of these before, I think a couple episodes ago, but a sort of what's the best, what's the worst, kind of like.
That wasn't me. I'm just trying to look at our stream. Keep going.
Usually my phone's on silent. It's weird that the one time it's not, we're doing a show.
Yeah.
But so this week I wanted to talk about the best fandoms and the worst fandoms. Like the people, the fan base that is just like the most toxic or just irritating.
Okay,
and the fan bases that are the most enjoyable and friendly or even just cool, like, or interesting, even if they aren't necessarily like, because there may be bad parts of all the ones that I've listed as good.
Yeah. But
like they're the ones that I look at and go, that's what fans should be like.
Cool.
But do you have any off the top of your head that
bad or good?
Bad or good.
Well, like
we'll start with whatever you want. But
well, like immediately I come to think about like YouTube comment threads being like.
I couldn't come up with like a definitive
negative.
One, but YouTube was in my head.
Yeah.
Like there's so many. There's one that I have for worst.
Call of Duty.
Call of Duty, I almost put on here, but I was like, I don't want to start a flame war. But Call of Duty,
also, especially if it's not so bad if you play it on the computer, but if you play it on like console, it's just a bunch of like
12-year-old.
Yeah, exactly.
So for the YouTubers, I wrote down the Jake Paulers.
Okay. Because
working around kids, I know that they're not bad, but I know that they're kids.
They're being influenced by
their kids are being influenced by garbage entertainment, like just bad, like objectively poorly crafted entertainment. Mm-hmm. He's not a good entertainer. He's not an intelligent or thoughtful person.
I like his Vines.
I'm sure, and that's the thing. I'm sure if Vine were still a thing, I wouldn't give a shit about Jake Paul.
Yeah.
But now that he's forced to work inside of this medium where basically you need to hit a 10-minute window.
Yeah.
And he's like pumping out content. Like he can't rap, he can't sing, and I looked up a video last night and the guy can't act.
Video?
We should absolutely do a music video.
Let's do a rap video.
Yeah, we should because that's actually a great way for us to maybe get a few viewers, is to just do some takedown raps, because we could write some sick between the two of us.
Yeah.
We both write good raps, so I think we could which I know for anyone who may have stumbled into this, in the future.
Two white guys saying we write good raps is always a great way to start
really, off. Yeah, really hard to believe, I know. Especially since I just said I was going to write a sci-fi novel. I know you're probably doubting me right now.
Check out my SoundCloud.
Yeah. Don't check out mine, but I did do a historical rap that was played on the CBC.
Yeah,
if you're in Canada, that means something. If you're not, it means literally nothing. In Canada, it almost means nothing too. Let's be serious. So that one, okay. So I'll lean into my worsts. So Doctor Who. Do you like Doctor Who?
No. So and I was gonna say I would like to preface this with like I'm pretty sure any show that like you don't follow is just immediately annoying.
Yeah. Well, see, some of these are shows I actually like, and some of them are things I like, and some of them are.
I was gonna say like
don't like.
yeah, okay, go ahead.
But Doctor Who, I enjoy the show, but the fans, like the diehard fans, talk about it like it's like just genius television. It's bad to middling sci-fi, and with like occasional really great episodes.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's.
I never watched it because I felt like it was like really like it felt like it was pandering to a real specific audience.
Well, it was originally conceived as a children's entertainment show. Like it's not high brow, and like obviously anyone watching this who is a Doctor Who fan, I enjoy the show. I just think that the fans are way too overzealous.
A little too far into it.
They're way too over the top about it being amazing when it's just okay, kind of B sci-fi.
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
on this that's serialized and comes out on a frequent basis. So I think people eat it up because it doesn't exist really in a lot of places.
That's how I felt kind of about Breaking Bad.
Yeah, Breaking Bad. It was a difficult one because the show was good. But when it wasn't good, it was so hard to say that it wasn't good because people would jump down your throat.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I never liked it. I watched the whole thing, but I just found, and I'm finding the same thing with Ozark now, is that they start way too big. Like, the fact that they get them into, like, he could die, like, there's people getting whatever, like, dying around him, and it's so close, and it's like they're putting him in situations, it's like, he could die. It's like, no, he won't.
That's the problem with television. That's the problem with television is that you have this serialized show where you need to raise the stakes episode over episode to reach the end of the season, but you also every episode need to have a build of tension.
And when that's only based on one guy, and the whole thing is about like creating tension about is he gonna survive or isn't he? It's like you already know the goddamn answer.
That's why Black Mirror is so great because every episode is just a new story. It's like why I absolutely love the Twilight Zone. Why I enjoy non-serialized television as well, where it's just like...
I like when there's not one obvious main character. Like, that's the one thing that I think Game of Thrones does super well.
It's so good. And,
even though I don't like that show. Yeah.
Stories end all the time in that show. Like, it's not just constant. I almost put that on best, but then I realized that the fan base is so watered down. There's no, like... it's unfair to say it's one of the best fan bases because there's such a quiet fan base because of how loud they are.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they're like the people who are diehard. Don't seem that diehard because everybody likes Game of Thrones.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not like being a diehard Star Trek fan, where like there's a lot of people who hate Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's not like.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I don't even like Game of Thrones. Like, I can't watch it.
But not many people are trying to argue the fact that Game of Thrones is
bad.
Good television.
Exactly. Well, that's it.
They might say like, I don't like it, I don't enjoy it, I think it's boring. But not many people say. Like,
I can't say it's poor.
Unequivocally bad.
Exactly.
Television.
Like, I can't.
It's well produced.
That's it.
Decently written. Lots of parts I don't like about the show, especially in the past season where it's sort of started to feel like they're really TVing it up.
Honestly, I didn't even realize that they canceled Marco Polo.
Neither did I. Because
I love that show so much, and everyone's like,
really
"How could you like that show? It's horrible." I'm like,
the people liked it. The people who liked it loved it. I watched the first 2 episodes when my cousin was over, and I just never got around to watching the whole thing.
Cinematography is just
that's what struck
everything.
me. Like it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
I just
apparently
finished
they
watching
lost a lot, like 20 million or something like that.
I'm not surprised, man. Yeah. Like they go hard on like on the weirdest shit. Like I'm like, why is this what you put all your money into?
Yeah.
That one I buy. Like I'm like, cool, but the premise was weird
Yeah.
for them to sink that much money into because I could have told you that wasn't gonna be successful even if it was good.
Yeah.
Because shows like it's like everyone's trying to do the epic right now because of Game of Thrones. But yeah,
For sure.
So in my worst, no,
Yeah.
it's good. That's what the show's about. Big Bang Theory is the worst.
Sorry,
fan.
Dad.
I've watched that show.
I have watched
and
quite a
I've
bit of it.
It's one of those shows that's always on when I'm in a hotel room. If it's not Family Guy, it's Big Bang Theory because it's just on TV. I don't hate the show. I am perplexed by its popularity.
I'm not. Because it makes you feel like you understand things.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean? Like they do this weird way of doing things that it's like because these guys are smart, it makes you feel like you're watching something highbrow.
Especially since they never do anything smart except for say big words.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they their job is smart, but you never see them actually doing their job.
Yeah, or at least
sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. No, I know what you mean.
But yeah, it's perplexing to me because the fandom is about wearing shirts and catchphrases around a comedy that isn't that funny.
Well, I mean, a lot of the people that are into the stuff the guys are in the show are into aren't gonna watch that show.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think that's what perplexes me about it because it's a fandom made up of largely non.
Like my dad loves that show.
Type people. They're not fanboy, fangirl
Yeah.
type people who watch that show usually.
Well, I also think it's because of the way that they portray the stereotype.
I used to say, and this may be offensive, I don't know, but I always called it nerd face.
Yeah.
It's like a minstrel show about nerds where it's like this is not what nerds are like. It's put on for the entertainment of non-nerds.
Yeah.
It's like fucking nerds.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you can imagine like guys in blackface back in the day, all the people being like, that is what black people are like. And like just the most evil shit.
That's great. That's great.
That's
really good.
That's how I think of that show. It's like it's pretend nerds, but
yeah.
So that maybe my exceptions with the show more than the fandom, but the shirts drive me crazy. When I see like a bazinga, I'm like, ugh. Yeah. I hate catchphrases. Catchphrases are like the ultimate thing that I find like just despicable about television. Where I'm like, oh, catchphrases. And then the only other thing on my worst right now. Oh wait, Dark Souls.
Oh, we're still on worst.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got one more worst after this. And
I got lots of worsts.
I have a lot of worsts, but I restricted both of my lists to 5 so I wouldn't go over the top.
Okay.
Dark Souls, only because the fans think they're like the most OG gamers. It's like you realize the games were always hard until 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like you aren't special because you play a game that's challenging.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating because you hear people talking about like, and then Souls fans being like, oh, well, I like Dark Souls, and I can't play other games now because they're too easy.
Yeah.
But actually, if you
sucks.
Almost every game has a hard level,
a
new game plus mode, and if you're telling me that those other games aren't challenging, but like, oh, well, they're not challenging in the same way, you mean they're not challenging in an easy way like Dark Souls, where you get to repeat it over and over again? They're challenging in the way that they're not like fun to suck at.
Yeah.
Like Dark Souls, anyone can suck at Dark Souls and beat the game because that's what the game is designed to do. It's designed to make you better at the game.
Cool.
So it's a really clever design. Dark Souls, fantastic game. I just hate the fans.
Yeah. Cool.
I don't hate the fans. A lot of my friends are Dark Souls fans, like fanboy fans. And then last, Rick and Morty. I can't stand it right now. I love the show. I can't stand all the people talking about Rick and Morty. Like, you know how you just hit peak saturation with people talking about a show?
I don't know. I don't have friends.
It's more the internet. It's not my friends. I love talking about Rick and Morty with my friends. We're like, what about this? Like, it's so cool. Like, I like the construction of this, like the setup for this joke, or like the inane punchline to this joke. Like, I love talking about that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just sick of going on the internet and seeing people, because right now it's like there's like a civil war amongst Rick and Morty fans. We're like, I'm a real Rick and Morty fan, and I'm sick of them. And they're saying what I'm saying, where they're like, I hate the fandom. No, like I'm just sick of people talking about it.
Yeah.
Because I don't care what people like. I enjoy Rick and Morty, I don't care if people are irritating in their fandom, and I don't care if people hate. Like it's almost become meta where I'm like, I hate that you hate Rick and Morty fans.
Yeah.
I'm just sick of people talking about how people enjoy Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's the sort of what I'm doing to all of these things.
I was gonna say, isn't that's kind of any fandom in general? It's like
Yeah.
anytime anyone takes anything deeper than it is, it all of a sudden is just like, all right, we get it.
Yeah. What's the thing? I want to when I love these shows, I want to just enjoy them. I don't want to analysis is great, but like it gets to this point where like if you need there to be deeper meaning to the things you watch than what's on the surface, we live in this weird like fan theory culture where everything needs to have a deeper meaning, and that one's just like the most. It's in the eye of the storm right now. Like we are in the eye of the Rick and Morty fan theory storm where next season things will cool down and people maybe won't be so irritating, but because it somehow blew up this year, I think two seasons.
And also, I think the other thing that we need to take into account is it's like the fact that you like anything enough to go onto the internet to see what people are saying about it. It's like that's because like I had no idea that Rick and Morty fandom
I don't know how
that big a deal.
The thing is, I don't go looking for it. I don't know how. I think it's just that the internet's that saturated with right now that if I go on,
Well, because you watch a lot of TV related stuff.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
So it's like people who are commentators on that stuff are all talking about Rick and Morty and talking about how other people are talking about Rick and Morty.
Yeah, for sure.
It's become an echo chamber. It's
Well,
like
that's
the
it. And
political spectrum
I feel
right
like
now.
I feel like everything online because I started thinking about the worst and I'm like, well, I'm a Habs fan. I hate reading shit that other Habs fans post online.
Yeah.
I hate reading what Leaf fans post online. I hate reading what Bruins fans post online. Anyone that's like a homer for their sports team that just like refuses to look at reason, it's just like, to me it's toxic. And then I just start thinking about it. It's like, well, same with PUBG, same with every video game I play. Anything that I am going out in search of that other people are also going out of their way to look for opinions on, you're bound to have all of those toxic people show up.
What you're saying about sports, like, and how people participate in sports is the same, like, what you're saying is a bad thing is the same reason I love WWE fans.
Yeah.
Because they are part of the drama.
It's because it's fake.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
exactly.
If it was because they cater the show to the fans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's like, I wrote it down, I'm like, do I love or hate WWE fans? I'm like, no, everyone I've ever talked to about wrestling is my favorite conversation. Like, it's always so much fun to talk to wrestling fans because even though, like, I hate that wrestler, it's part of the drama.
Yeah, for sure.
You're supposed to hate and love certain
sure.
wrestlers and to argue with your friends about it. It's like it's like the world's biggest LARP. We're all pretending that
sure.
WWE is real just to have fun
Yeah.
and talk about the drama of it. It's
sure.
it's a soap opera. It's a sports soap opera. Yeah.
I do that with my buddies with MMA, just because it's like it's the only thing that's close that you're still. But even then, it's like if you're just if you're a real fan of whichever sport it is, like I know it. Like I have a hard time like when the Habs are playing the Leafs and the Leafs are kicking the shit out of them. Like I have a hard time enjoying it, but at the same time, it's like if it's good hockey, it's good hockey. Like. It sucks that your team's losing, but like you can't just like say that everything that's going against your team is just total trash, because it's the same thing as any fandom that I'm starting to realize that like when you go out looking for it, all you find is like the most obnoxious garbage.
I think that's actually maybe the answer to why all of my negative ones are on the negative side.
Yeah.
Because they have become sort of like the popular thing to like Doctor Who.
Yeah.
That's like it's like the go-to like if you're gonna make a nerd in a TV show, they're gonna be a Doctor Who fan.
Yeah.
Like it's become the popular thing. Rick and Morty just blew up. Dark Souls is like the game that everything's a Souls-like game now.
Yeah.
Jake Pauler's obviously the big thing right now.
Yeah.
Big Bang Theory, most popular show on television. Like I think maybe that's what it is. It's like if you pour enough people into a fandom, you're just gonna see more of the negative.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is like
exactly, and it's just like that in sports. It's just like that in like anything I can think of. I was trying to think of good fan bases, and the only ones I can think of are things that aren't necessarily popular anymore that the people still like.
That's what most of mine are. Most of mine are universally loved things like Harry Potter,
Lord of the Rings,
Star Wars. WWE is the one that doesn't fit the mold, but I think like the reason we just get, like, I think it's really obvious. People who hate WWE would probably hate the fan base too.
No, for
but
sure.
If you love wrestling, and then it's the best fan base, because every wrestling fan, if you tell someone who's a WWE fan that you're a WWE fan, they're like, brother, let's talk about wrestling. Like, it's immediately
I was gonna
a
say
brotherhood.
it's like
or
like
sister.
metal.
Yeah,
like,
metal is it?
Yeah,
I'm putting metal on this list. I really do want to come back to these at some point and write a blog about these lists that we make, because metal is a great fan base. People who love metal or jazz or just genres in general.
Ska shows are the most fun I've ever had at concerts.
You know why? The reason I glowered when you said ska was because I just remembered one ska show I went to that was an all ages show where it's just a bunch of like 14-year-old kids like trying to mosh to ska music, and I was like, I want to kill all these kids right now. I'm about to put on a trench coat and go Columbine on this room full of ska kids. That was the worst thing I've ever said live on the internet. I'm sorry.
We used to get hammered and go and skank, and there'd be like 2 other people doing it because it'd be an adults only show. So like everyone else would just be sitting around like chatting, drinking, and we're all up the front like skanking and dancing, and like so much fun.
Like ska used to be about 40-year-old dudes in fedoras.
Yeah, man.
And now it's like if you go to a ska show, it's like every kid is like 14. And what's happening? Why is there even an all ages ska show? This used to be like counterculture that had gotten old.
Yeah.
Now, like, I think it's because Sublime T-shirts exist. Yeah. Enough kids have Sublime T-shirts. They're like, maybe I should go check out another ska band in my local bar. So, but yeah, music genres in general tend to, like, if you're like part of the diehard core of a genre fandom. Yeah. Like metal. Metal is one of the interesting ones because. Also, music genres actually have a real, like, they're a little bit more varied than these other ones, because you can't be just a TV fan. No. You can, but like no one's like I'm a TV fan.
Yeah.
Like they might say I love watching TV.
I was gonna say like I call myself a sitcom fan.
Yeah.
Because like even though there are like really really bad sitcoms out there, I watch them all.
Yeah, and it's like metal, where it's like there's some terrible metal out there, but I love metal. Yeah. Like I almost never listen to metal anymore. That's what I grew up like. That's what got me into music was metal.
Yeah. Like I will tell people that I like metal, only if like I know that it's not gonna be followed with like a 2-hour conversation about which is my favorite subgenre.
Yeah, I hate the sub-classification of metal is the most confusing thing, because
I know
people will be like, "Oh no, that's black metal."
Yeah.
Like, what's the fucking?
I mostly just judge it by like how much fun it is to listen to. Like I compare metal that I like to listen to classical music, where it's like it's gotta like intrigue me and challenge me, or else it's kind of boring.
Well, and some people are like, "That's not metal," and I'm like.
What?
Like
yeah, what is it?
What?
Like, yeah.
Like, well, like certain subgenres of metal have been like squeezed out and like extruded because they're not metal enough now.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
Like early metal, like Black Sabbath
metal
and
shit,
stuff like that, and like I'm like, yeah, sure, Black Sabbath isn't metal anymore by the standards of modern metal, but they definitely paved the way for metal. Yeah. Like, and then if you tell me Ronnie James Dio isn't a metalhead, and I know that may not be the popular lead singer of Black Sabbath, but if you're telling me Dio wasn't a metalhead, then fuck off. But yeah, like those are all my bests are pretty easily explained. Star Wars is just beloved. Harry Potter, beloved. Lord of the Rings, beloved. Star Trek, another beloved franchise. So there may be parts of all those fandoms that you don't love, but like if you go to one of those,
Beatles.
Yeah, the Beatles actually. The Beatles is a tough one for me because I'm like a self-loathing Beatles fan. Okay. Because I think it's like I don't know how the estate of all of these, like, I know that they're not all dead. Ringo and Paul are still around. But like I don't know how the like mechanism that surrounds the Beatles made them into this like monolithic god of rock when they're just kind of like an okay pop band. Yeah. Like a really good okay pop band, but like they don't stand. It's the time. It's the way that it was at the time, and that's what it is. I think because I always
look at Michael Jackson,
and that's the thing. The king of pop,
Elvis, like is back when people only had one channel.
It's a weird thing to think of, like when people say like, "Will there ever be another Beatles?" And my answer is always no. But then it's so weird to think, will there ever be a shift in media where we have like all of a sudden there is another Elvis, but it's not in the way we think it'll be.
State
like
sponsored media.
There'll be, or will it be like the grassroots Elvis, like who isn't a guy sold by the record labels, who will be just sort of the next. And Jesus, really, when I think of like people who reach that level, Jesus was totally the first big one of like the modern era.
Yeah.
Like
we named our whole time after him.
Yeah, we were like, let's start a new calendar because of this guy. He's like, let's start shit over. We're all about that Jesus. And he was just a real smooth talker. Or, depending on your beliefs, maybe more than that. But we maybe we'll have another sort of
Elvis.
And this is obviously coming from someone who's not
what
religious
about the Biebs
guy, but do you think we'll ever have like another grassroots person who just sort of becomes
the
like
Biebs.
a Jesus?
What about the Biebs?
I don't think he'll be remembered that way.
He's the closest we got.
I think he'll be remembered the way we remember the Backstreet Boys from our generation.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, like where he'll be the Justin Timberlake of 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, and he's still making records, and every time he puts out a record, it's a huge deal when he puts out a record, but it'll never be like if Paul and Ringo got together with a hologram of George and John and did a show where that would blow up the world.
I think the only way to really tell is to see which artists are maturing with their fan bases. You know what I mean? Because it's like how big really was like Led Zeppelin, or I don't know if they're a good example, but let's say Metallica before they were selling out massive.
Well, that's the thing. It's sort of,
you know what I mean?
It grows, it escalates. The Beatles were, I think what we need is another sudden shift in both the geopolitical climate, where all of a sudden, it was post-war, significantly post-war, but not so much that it was forgotten. These are people who, whose parents probably fought in the war, who are listening to the Beatles. All of a sudden, the ocean didn't seem so big after the war because planes were a lot. Now all these flight patterns are in there. Everything sort of just worked. Not to mention, all of a sudden, everyone had record players. Everyone could go to the store and buy a single.
Yeah.
No,
exactly.
So we need another shift like that.
There's only so many. Boom. But I mean, I think we're on that shift. I think it's more than possible. There just has to be something that's universally appealing enough. I think the closest thing we have right now, as weird as it is somebody
Korean pop music,
or Taylor Swift.
Yeah, that's the closest thing we've got right now is people who someone like her who year after year will.
Or Ed Sheeran. I mean, I know he's not that big, but he's got the quality.
Ed Sheeran will be
the quality and accessibility. I guess
he'll be the level of who's a really popular as weird as it is. He's sort of our generation's Bob Dylan. He's a songwriter.
Yeah.
He's a solo artist.
He does every genre too. He's not.
And that's why I said Bob Dylan, because I'm Bob Dylan was a folk artist who broke folk music at the time. He turned it into rock and roll, but he still was writing folk songs and performing them as rock, and then he did country, just worked through everything.
And Ed's doing exactly that.
And that's sort of, I mean...
He's you can tell he's a kind of a Celtic folk kind of singer, but he can rap, and he does hard pop songs, good pop songs.
Yeah, really good pop.
Yeah.
And you know what? I almost think that if there were another Beatles, it would be sort of just by sheer happenstance, 4 Ed Sheeran level talents.
That's it.
Get together into a band and they make good pop music, but not the way that it's made right now, where it's One Direction, this sort of factory milled pop music. It's for musicians.
Who Ed Sheeran and John Mayer and a couple guys that really rip at guitar and
instead of it being a super group though, if it's 4 early Ed Sheerans that go
no, I know what you mean.
We should all get together and make music independently from, because right now all of our super boy band groups are are like sort of like cookie cutter molded by
Yeah.
the establishment to be a boy band.
Yeah.
Whereas the Beatles were just four guys who were already playing together who were discovered
Yeah.
and then grafted into popular culture, like as opposed to being created around the culture.
Yeah.
So
I know what you mean. I know it's not the same scale, but that's what I really like about Alexis on Fire. Is that it's a bunch of guys that are really talented individually that got together and just like made really cool shit.
It's odd that I think what's happened that's keeping that from being a thing that's going on in the world right now.
There's no money in playing music as a band. If
There's
you're
no
really
money in
good,
playing
you do it
music
by
as a
yourself.
band, and there's just a stigma around being a musician and making pop music.
Yeah.
And which, I mean, like, but we all revere the Beatles, but we look at pop music and we go, like, that's a dirty word. But those guys, like,
It's just
took
because
it and
of what the
reformed
industry
what pop
did
music
with
could
it.
be.
Yeah, but then the industry, like the 80s happened.
Yeah. It's a shame. But, like, there's got to be a renaissance at some point, right?
Well,
like,
and I think we're in it. I just think that it's never going to be that big because once you
we
find
need to
what
change
you
our
like,
expectations of what the industry is. Too,
that's
because,
Because once you find what you like, it's like you have electronic music festivals where I don't get into electronic, but there's guys making millions and millions of dollars, packing stadiums to people that specifically like that style of music. Same with country. Same with
and the
metal,
mainstream will never be risk in the game of taking risks. The mainstream will always be about looking at the risk takers and following in their footsteps.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to like almost stay one step ahead of the industry to be living in that moment where a Beatles could happen.
Yeah.
Like, because the moment they happen, we're all gonna hate them.
Exactly. That's it. And that's what happens with the cultures. As soon as somebody gets too big for it, these fandoms start to pop up and you go, I fucking hate these people that are commenting about this guy. I don't want to be in the same group as them. They suck.
It's sad, but it's true, man. All right. Now, since I have a rehearsal at 7, we should...
oh, shit.
Yeah, I know.
We've been doing good time today.
Yeah. Like, every week it gets a little bit clippier. But let's.
Did we talk about everything?
Well, I brought the story generator and the story cubes, but
we'll
do that next week. Especially
tweet?
since I'll be in the thick of NaNoWriMo. Well, not the thick of it. I'll be days into it though by Thursday next week. 2 days in, so I'll be in my writing mental zone. All right, so this is a point in the show where we, in case you're wondering why I have my phone out, this is a point in the show where we find someone on the internet who is doing something interesting, and we tweet at them collaboratively.
Did we talk about anyone today?
Well, right before the show, there was a lady who farted in a kid's mouth.
Yeah, but I don't think
Teacher
we
who
can
got
find
a
her
vacation.
Twitter.
No, yeah.
She had a 2-week vacation, like 400-pound lady, pinned her student, I guess, sat on him and farted on him.
The name of the title of the article did say farted in his mouth.
In his mouth.
I'd like to say for the record.
Yeah.
So what's going on in the world?
I don't know. Look at Twitter. That's the only way to know.
Couples engagement pics prove the effectiveness of camouflage. Stupid. Gigi Hadid photobombed a Vogue spread. Why do people care about this stuff?
I don't know.
13 things you need to know Thursday. Twitter becomes more and more useless every day, I find.
UFC 217, National Pumpkin Day.
Irving Oil.
Base Nats. I don't know what Base Nats is.
I don't know what that is either.
Ontario Paramedics. Flyers, Go Jets Go.
Oh, we haven't done a hashtag yet.
No.
There's a hashtag My Secret Power. Is that...
I like that. Let's do it.
Hashtag My Secret Power, making all of your credit cards... Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, let's do hashtag My Secret Power.
We could still tweet it at somebody. I guess we should try and decide who we tweet it to after we've written it.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Okay, so this week, hashtag My Secret Power, I'll start, is...
Not
caring
when
I
lose
fingers
in
a Making.
Blended.
Fingers. Period.
Okay.
We've got 44 characters left.
Okay. So
When
you
lose
fingers
just
do
you 7 characters left, by the way.
okay. I don't know. Do we know? Is there any famous people that don't have fingers that we can tweet that at?
That's a good question. Look it up. Gary might lose fingers and a big blender won't be blended.
Famous people without fingers. Is it famous people without fingers? Or should we tweet it at a chef that uses a blender? Then that way we're not getting into like
I wonder if
offensive
the
territory.
I wonder. You know the movie Chef?
No.
You ever saw that movie? It's a Jon Favreau movie. Let's see if Chef has if the movie had an official Twitter
I
page.
was gonna say you should just tag like Jamie Oliver or something.
Yeah, Jamie Oliver's funny. Jamie Oliver. What? That counts as characters? I thought.
Oh, it does?
No.
Damn it.
I thought we had 7 though. Oh right, he's
Tommy Iommi from Black Sabbath is missing fingers. Jesse James is missing fingers.
At Donald Trump, Justin Bieber, J.K. Rowling. I don't know who Jack is, but his name is short enough for us to fit it in there. Should we just use at Jack?
Hold on, there's gotta be. What about? I don't know.
Right now, we are restricted to someone who has 7 characters in their name. Or no, 6. That's a lie.
Okay, so, let's see. We gotta go with somebody in the food industry. We just gotta find somebody with a short enough Twitter handle.
What about Gordon Ramsay? His name's too long. I thought he would maybe have a short one. Emerald? Oh, Emerald's always on Twitter too.
Yes.
Yes, and it's exactly the right way.
Oh, Bobby Flay too. B Flay. Plus, I don't know if you watch a lot of cooking shows, but when they were doing Iron Chef, he was always hurting himself.
So what's his B?
B Flay.
B Flay. Oops, I put beef gay.
As much as Emerald would be funny.
We'll get Emerald next week.
Yeah.
You gotta follow him on Twitter. I follow Emerald on Twitter. He's hilarious. Okay, so our hashtag MySecretPower tweet is out there. If you're watching, go out there and retweet for us because we're at Sectional Intercourse, but it's spelled weird. We'll add it.
How is it spelled?
You know what? We should put that in the graphics here next time.
Oh yeah.
Handle.
We got lots of room up there. Right here.
And if you do collaborative tweets with your friends, make sure to share them with us, and we'll share them on the show.
Also, if you want to be on the show, or have any ideas for games that we can play on the show, give us a shout on Twitter, or Facebook, or comment. Also,
Here, I'm going to hold up my phone so they can see. That is how you find us. So pause it.
Goodbye.